the Honorable Pak to lead us in the invocation.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ربنا إننا سمعنا منادي ينادي للإيمان أن آمنوا فآمنا. ربنا فاغفر لنا فإنك أنت الغفور الرحيم وارحمنا فإنك أنت أرحم الراحمين. ربنا افرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا في هذا المقام إلا غفرته ولا مريضا إلا شفيته ولا حاجة من حوائجنا في هذه الحياة إلا أعنتنا على قضاء ربنا. اللهم إنا نسألك من كل خير ما سألك منه نبيك وحبيبك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ونستعيذ بك من كل شر ما استعاذك منه نبيك وحبيبك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. ربنا افرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Our session for today is a continuation of session number 108. We have 5 remaining measures to deliberate and consider and deliberate for today. However, before we proceed with the consideration of these measures, we will suspend the rules to give way, suspend the session to give way for the turning over of the resolution in memorial of the late Vice Governor Dato Gimid Matalam. Session suspended for a few minutes. General, to may we ask you to invite the recipient of the resolution, and I invite all members of the Parliament present today physically to accompany the author, Madam Susan Anayatin, to witness the turnover.
Mr. Speaker, before inviting the members of the Parliament to witness and to accompany the main author of these resolutions, may the Secretary be allowed to read first the content of the resolutions, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Republic of the Philippines, Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, Bangsamoro Parliament, Bangsamoro Government Center, Cotabato City. 4th regular session, resolution number 244. Resolution expressing deepest sympathy and condolences to the family of the former Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, ARMM, Regional Legislative Assembly Speaker, Dato Jimmy Matalam, and recognizing his contributions to the Bangsamoro people. Whereas the former Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, Regional Legislative Assembly Speaker Dato Jimmy Matalam peacefully passed away in the early hours of Shawwal 17, 1443 after Hijrah, equivalent to May 18, 2022. Whereas as a member of the first post-martial law Congress, he was best remembered as one of the 2 principal sponsors of the consolidated bills on the creations of the ARMM, and as the chairperson of the Committee on Muslim Affairs, wherein the measure had been passed into law as Republic Act number 6734 the Philippines' first autonomous region law. Whereas he had been a Maguindanao congressman of the 2nd District of Maguindanao for 2 terms, 1987 to 1992 and 2001 to 2004, Speaker of the ARMM Regional Legislative Assembly 1993 to 1996, ARMM Vice Governor 1996 to 2001, ARMM Department of Agrarian Reform Regional Secretary 1992 to 1993, and ARMM Department of Interior and Local Government Regional Secretary 1996 to 2001. Whereas he was the son of the late Empire Governor Dato Udtog Matalam, also known as Bapay Zumbaga of Maguindanao, North Cotabato, South Cotabato, and Sultan Kudarat provinces of Sarangani. He was also the older brother of the late former Maguindanao Governor and former Pagalungan Mayor Dato Nuruddin Matalam, also known as Tamagay. Whereas he was the nearest kin of the late Senator General Salipada K. Pendatun and late Moro Islamic Liberation Front founding chairman Dr. Ustad Hasim Salamat Hashim Allahu Yarhamu. Whereas the Bangsamoro government condoles with the bereaved family and loved ones of the late Speaker Matalam, as well as expresses its admirations and gratitude for his invaluable contributions in public service for the people of Maguindanao and the Bangsamoro in general. Now therefore be it resolved by the BTA Parliament, as it is hereby resolved, to express its deepest sympathy and condolences to the family of the former ARMM Regional Legislative Assembly Speaker, Dato Jimmy Matalam, and to recognize his contributions to the Bangsamoro people. Resolved further to forward the foregoing resolutions to the very family of Dato Jimmy Matalam for their information. Adopted Dhul Al-Hijjah 16, 1443, equivalent to June 15, 2022. Certified and correct, Professor Rabi B. Angkal, Secretary General, attested by Attorney Pangalian M. Balindong, Speaker. This resolutions is principally authored by the members of the Parliament, Dr. Susana Anatin, Empera Sulit Mitmug, Liza M. Alamia, Suharto M. Amboludo, Baintan A. Ampatuan, Rasul Ismail, Don Mustafa A. Luong, Amel Bahar Mawalin. Co-authored by the members of the Parliament, Narciso C.O. Ike, Harun M. Abbas, Ahmad I. Abbas, Nabila Margarita P. Pangandaman, Aida M. Silungan, Abdullah E. Gayak, Musa K.S. Jamla, Cesar Etz Alil, E.D. M. Ali, Abdulaziz M. Ismail, by Maleha B. Kandaw, Melano U. Ulama, Abdullah B. Hashim, Abdul Muhmin Mujahid, Hatimil E. Hasan, Ana Tarhata Basman, Omar Yasser Sisema, Jose I. Lorena, Pangalian M. Balindong, Faiz S. Aleudin, Punduma Bisani, Diamla de Ramos, Ali O. Sadik, Ibrahim D. Ali, and Bainon G. Karun. Mr. Speaker.
May we request the representative of the Matalam family, of the late Vice Governor Gimid Matalam, to receive a copy, an original copy of the resolution.
And so we also request all members of the Parliament around to please join us to witness the awarding of this resolution number 244.
Colleagues, please join us here. May we request the Majority Floor Leader to join us in the handing of the copy of the resolution.
May I respectfully hand over this resolution to the Deputy Speaker and Majority Floor Leader for the awarding.
Before we resume for today's session, may this representation recognize and acknowledge the presence of the family of our colleague MP Eddie M. Ali, his family, Professor Cherry B. Ali, Hadia Iza B. Ali, the daughter, Hadia Alza B. Ali, daughter, Eddie B. Ali II, and Joshua T. Budlong, brother-in-law. Please stand up to be recognized. We welcome you in the BTA Parliament. Session resumes. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, considering that this is the last day session for the month of July, may I move to first tackle on the resolutions that were transferred to the business of the day first before we proceed to the main committee reports.
Is that a motion?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. So I move.
Is there any second? There being no objection, the motion is approved.
Now we are now on business item number
Second.
12, business for the day. The first proposed resolution is proposed resolution number 795. Resolution requesting BARM government agencies to observe respect for hijab policy in the conduct of government business, and requesting the Bangsamoro Human Rights Commission, BHRC, and Bangsamoro Women Commission to conduct advocacy building and the implementation of the hijab policy. The principal authors are MP Aida Silongan, Ana Tarhata Basman, Ubaida MPs, Ubaida Sipa Kasem, MP Attorney Raisa Jajuri, Marjani Makasalong, and Bainan G. Caron. Mr. Speaker, I therefore open the period of interpellation and debate, Mr. Speaker. If there is any. Yes. Yeah, yes, you're the one of the principal authors.
The Speaker.
Yes, before we proceed, Mr. Speaker, there is the principal author, Attorney Ana Tarhata Basman, would like to have a introductory speech on this particular resolution. Mr. Speaker, may we respectfully recognize MP Ana Tarhata Basman.
The lady from Lanao del Sur is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah ma ba'd. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, my dear colleagues in the Parliament, our guests. This resolution stems primarily, Mr. Speaker, from admittedly a personal experience. I think it cannot be gainsaid the importance of hijab and the preservation of modesty among adherents of, among the women adherents of the Islamic faith. There are different gradations or levels as to how we interpret modesty in that respect. However, all of this should be recognized and protected as straight instrumentalities. Mr. Speaker and my dear colleagues, ang pinanggagalingan ko po ay mayroong mga requirement ang ating mga government offices where official photographs are required to be taken. Unfortunately, some instrumentalities of the government here in the BARM are not compliant with the general practice of respecting this of this constitutionally guarded freedom to exercise religion, as opposed to how other religions do it. It's a pong example, Mr. Speaker and our dear colleagues. When the national ID system was rolled out here in the BARM, I had a personal experience of being asked to expose my ears in the photograph. Mr. Speaker, I asked my family and my relatives in other regions, particularly in the National Capital Region, if this was also their experience, and the answer is no. Years back, in my younger years, I remember that we had this similar crusade with the NBI when those who are required to obtain an NBI clearance had to also deal with the same problem. So ang ginagawa po namin noon, there was a big lobby for the NBI to issue a memorandum which states that this cannot be done. We don't require the women who are wearing the hijab to reveal their ears or even adjust their hijab for this purpose. And Mr. Speaker, even in the passport, in the visa requirements, that is not a requirement. And to my surprise, it is a requirement here in the BARM, where the majority of the population are Muslims. Mr. Speaker, this might be a minor issue for some of us. We take it for granted, but it is so ironic that this is something that we cannot impose or enforce in the BARM, when elsewhere in the country, this is a given, that the hijab of anybody that is approaching or going to government offices, frontline offices, where certain requirements are to be obtained, for example, a passport or any other government ID, is required to forego or sacrifice their modesty just to obtain this. And some of our fellows, marami pong malamang sa ating mga kababayan, believe that they have no other choice if they wish to have a passport, if they wish to have a national ID, if they wish to have an NBI clearance for their employment or other requirements, then they must comply. And the fact of the matter is, it is not a requirement in any other parts of the country. So, Mr. Speaker, the purpose of this resolution is to urge to initiate that critical step of conversation with these agencies, and that there be an official policy of the Bangsamoro government that we push for this. Medyo nakakahiya po, Mr. Speaker and my dear colleagues, na sa Metro Manila hindi po ito problema, sa Davao City hindi po ito problema, pero sa Bangsamoro region ito po ay kinakaharap ng ating mga kababayan na Muslima. So yun lamang po yung nais ipahatid ng resolution na ito, na sana sa rehiyon kung saan naninirahan at nananatili ang mayorya ng mga Muslim sa bansa, ang ating mga karapatan ay hindi na isasantabi, kahit na ang karapatan na yon ay kasing simple ng pagkuha ng government ID, nang hindi isinasakripisyo ang kanilang paniniwala bilang mga Muslim. Yun lamang po, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may I relinquish my majority leader to the deputy majority leader? I have a few clarificatory questions on this particular resolution, Mr. Speaker.
we recognize, we acknowledge the Deputy Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. We now open the floor, Mr. Speaker, if you so merit to recognize the first interpellator, the Majority Floor Leader, Mr. Speaker.
The Majority Floor Leader is recognized.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, may the lady from Lanao del Sur be yield to some clarificatory question, Mr. Speaker.
Sure. Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, when I read this proposed resolution, I remember one of the resolution before related to hijab policy, Mr. Speaker, where the Bangsamoro women is required to wear hijab, sort of mandatory. Ito ba ay kahalintulad nung